The Haunted Mind, Chapter 5, by Ransom Backus. I swear by the gods and all that is holy, Inspector, a murder took place there, a terrible one. I was on my 5th cup of strong tea that morning. My nerves robbed me of much-needed sleep. The inspector seemed to be paying little attention to my words as he perused his notes. He rarely looked up at me in acknowledgement. From behind those small round glasses perched on the tip of his squat nose decorating a fat round face, he seemed to be enthralled in what was written on the paper in front of him. "Someone needs to investigate this immediately!" I pushed after a moment of silence. Finally, the inspector looked up at me from across the table. "I assure you, Mr. Anthony, I'm taking everything you say into consideration, and I will file my report with the constable. If he decides to take the case, you can rest assured that the Baron's affairs are in good hands. Now, please, do get some sleep. And at this point, I highly recommend you steer clear of the mansion, the brothel, and especially Madame Beatrice." He paused, then said, So you don't disturb them with your findings, of course. Now, for your mental state, we fear that you are losing control of your faculties. Do you perhaps wish to be under the care of a physician? A good checkup and a bit of rest at the asylum may do you some good, No, none of that. I'll be fine, I protested. A bit of opium, absinthe, and perhaps some time at church should do me some good. I think that this whole thing is getting to me. I concur, Inspector. I should perhaps steer clear of it all. In fact, it wasn't my choice to do the assessment in the first place. "So it's settled then. I'll be sure to disclose our conversation to the constable this afternoon, and you won't be leaving town, will you?" "I don't know. Perhaps a vacation to London to visit family might be in order." Yes. Well, don't leave yet. We may have some more questions for you." The inspector rose and went on his way, leaving me alone in the tavern to my final cup of tea and the rest of my dry biscuit. I finished them hurriedly, relieved that the case was finally on the table for the perusal of the local law enforcement. And I was also relieved that I could finally wash my hands of the whole mess and never have to return to that god-forsaken mansion. Still, there was one detail that disturbed me. When Todd witnessed the spectre with me, he showed no signs of fear. He displayed no sign of shock as any normal human being would. It was almost as though he had expected it. I didn't concern my mind too much with it, so I left it alone. I began my walk home. I was still weary from the events of the previous week, so I thought I would spend the day in my cottage towards the edge of town. I wanted more than anything to be alone. I would spend the day lost in books, both reading and writing them. My nerves needed a vacation. On that I agreed with the inspector. Yet as I walked, I couldn't help but notice the stares and looks of disapproval and even fear I had received from the townspeople. Some even did so much as to go out of their way to walk on the other side of the street. One small child stopped and looked at me. "You're a bad man! A bad man!" she said with a defiant look, as menacing as a 5-year-old could muster. "Come, dear, we mustn't talk to him. Leave him be. He's already got his own share of troubles. the mother corrected her and quickly urged her to continue on their way. I watched other mothers and fathers nudge their children away from me. Their faces were cold, some of them warmed, but with a certain pity instead of being pleasant. I hurried the rest of the way to my cottage, decided that I preferred to avoid them as well. Finally, I had reached my cottage at about 11:15. I was ready for my luncheon and then perhaps a nap. I felt a strange energy, a vibration, if you will, when I placed my hand upon the door handle. As I went in, my jaw dropped at what I saw. Sitting in the easy chair in front of the fireplace was none other than the Baron himself. No, I'm not referring to the transparent apparitions from my visit to the mansion, but rather the man himself, in the pink. His rotund belly was restrained by a white belt with a golden buckle. His round face was partially hidden by greying mutton chops. His head was covered with the finest of top hats, and resting next to him was an obsidian cane with a skull carved from ivory perched upon the top. Baron, is that you? But it can't be! Uncle! Please, refer to me as Uncle. I do so love terms of endearment from my own kin, you know. But you're dead, was my reply. Aren't we all? The Baron laughed absurdly to the point of coughing profusely. Sorry, I couldn't resist, he said, recovering from his coughing fit. I paused just for a moment to let everything sink in, allowing for a space in my reality that the deceased Baron could sit in comfortably. So what brings you here? Well, you most certainly saw no trouble in entering my estate, so I thought I would return the favour. Did you see anything of interest while you were there, Well, yes, go on. Did you murder those ladies? I found myself being more blunt than usual, and I shocked myself. Of course, don't be silly, he said, as though I were a dunce. But why? Oh, I had my reasons, but what's important now is the halls are dead, Madame Beatrice lies peacefully in her grave, and the estate and her estate are all in good hands. Your brother Todd is happy to take it all. But between you and I, he depended completely on your madness to take her out of the equation. It was a winner-take-all sort of thing. Quite frankly, I'm proud of the boy. He's a chip off the old block. He knew what he wanted and took it. Unlike you, having no spine and trying to lay low. Wait, Madame Beatrice is what? Oh, damn, I gave it away, didn't I? My blood ran cold as I felt my flesh crawl. I just saw her the other night, her whores, and you still don't get it, do you? What? His face began to change as though it were clay upon the potter's wheel. It became more fluid. Then there was no face at all. Then another face formed. The clearer and clearer it became, the more horrified I was, for the face looking at me was none other than my own. It was as though I were looking into a mirror. I backed away until I found myself up against the front door of the cottage. Yes, Jack, it's true. It's all true. I am you. No, it's impossible. Don't deny it, Jack. You know the truth, and it's time you stopped running and hiding in your opium and strong drink. Why are you calling me Jack? I'm Mark. Mark Anthony III. Really? You believe that? You were jealous of your older brother because he was in line to receive the family inheritance, so you killed him a long time ago, hence you fled to this small town to distance yourself from it all, and Todd covered for you. So you took his name to build your new life. No, it isn't true. None of it's true. Oh, stop kidding yourself, Jack. It was inevitable that you come to the truth. You killed Madame Beatrice and all of her whores that night, out of a drunken and drugged stupor and your own desires for the inheritance. I had a nudge from my spirit beyond the grave, and it was a done deal. But unlike you, your brother Todd remained squeaky clean in the whole thing, and now he gets it all. I blanched. The reality of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd been set up all along. Todd knew what would happen since the very beginning, and he took everything, that sly devil. I cursed him in my heart and admired him at the same time. The scene you watched played out in my mansion wasn't me slaughtering those whores. It was your mind replaying what you did that night at Madame Beatrice's brothel. But you blocked it out because it was so horrific, so you don't recognize it. No, Jack, I am many things, but a murderer isn't one of them. I'm far more discreet than that. That's why I possessed you to do it. Todd, however, simply used your vulnerable position, your feelings and affinity for intoxicants against you, and exploited it all in his favor. That's the one thing that I didn't count on, and I was pleasantly surprised. If you had played your cards right, the estates would have been yours, but you were too messy. I took the fall for him, and he took it all. I said it several times to allow the news to sink in. Oh, no time for anger and revenge now. Prepare yourself. The constabulary are coming for you. Your final mistake was involving the law, and who knows what your fate will be. Where will I go? I asked. Why, back to London, of course. Great Britain cares not if you killed a few whores and whales. After all, the Welsh are beneath the boots of the British Empire. Now run, Jack, run! Then, just like that, the Baron vanished, and I was left all alone to my thoughts. Was it true? Was the constabulary after me? Was my time in Wales over? I couldn't just waltz back into my family's estate, not after I had killed my older brother. Not after Todd did what he did. I couldn't face them. They would never have it. But the Baron was correct. London was really my only chance at momentary refuge until I devised a plan for my next move in my future. I looked outside the window, and there I could see the constable's men coming towards the cottage. Yes, the Baron's ghost was correct. I had to flee, and I had to do it fast. No time to pack. I grabbed my long coat and brolly. I stopped for a moment, then I saw that the Baron had left his top hat behind. I most certainly had to take that with me. I wrapped a scarf around my mouth and placed the hat upon my head. I would have to flee through the back door and remain inconspicuous until I was far enough away to blend in with the rest of the townspeople. I looked about and I eyed a long, sharp knife. That would have to do for defense in such short notice. I looked through the back window and was thankful that there was still enough fog coming up from the river to conceal my whereabouts. Through the door I went, and allowed myself to dissolve into the mist. I was clear. I was free. And now the conclusion of The Haunted Mind by Ransom Bacchus. Chapter 6. The Whitechapel district of London, 3 years later. Call it an art, if you will, or perhaps a calling. Maybe it's my duty to God and country. Perhaps it's to feed the never-satisfied hunger of the monster that is revenge. One thing for sure is, it's my sole passion and even perverse desire to do my work. Oh, you call me a murderer, a criminal, the terror that stalks the streets of London's Whitechapel district at night, and you tell your women to beware. There's nothing quite like the feel of the soft flesh of a whore's bosom yielding to my blade and deep crimson fluid that flows out. Or perhaps it would be from her neck. It really all depends where I'm standing. I prefer to come up behind her for an easier kill, as the neck is the chosen target. However, if we do find ourselves face to face, it's only a bit of maneuvering and a sleight of hand to make the kill just the same. I still relive that fateful night years ago in Pembrokeshire County. I remember the first taste of blood as, one by one, I slaughtered the whores at Madame Beatrice's brothel. Was it I, or did the ghost of the Baron possess me? It really doesn't matter, and I don't really care. Some say I was possessed, some say I'd lost my mind, others say that I was killed while I was on the run from the constabulary. The truth is I still live, and the spirit of the Baron still lives in me. I remember slaying every single woman there that night. I remember Madame Beatrice's face, the look of shock and terror in her eyes, an open mouth, her tongue listed badly to one side, lolling out of her mouth as my blade sliced her neck. The cut yielded the deep red fluid ribbon that I have come to cherish as kind of a decoration. The whores, after all, were an abomination before God and man. They seduce men away from the church and from science and reason, and lure them to a life of debauchery and evil, and in my case, were instrumental of robbing a good man of his rightful inheritance. Some condemn my methods, some accuse me of being a minion of the church itself, enforcing its will upon the masses. Others laud me as a hero for cleaning up the city of London. Yet still others claim that I don't exist in an urban legend, a mere hoax perpetrated by clever writers. I'd like to think of myself as a hero as well, don't get me wrong. I also like to think of myself as both a servant of God and man. The devil, regardless of how he should appear, shall not win the souls of wayward men, drawing them to hell through the supple bosom of the seductress. Not on my watch. There she is now, yet another succubus in hiding, that beautiful blonde wig cascading from her head, covering all but her supple breasts, begging to be free of a corset. I draw closer. She doesn't see me as I lurk in the shadows. I think this one, I would like to see her eyes when she passes from this world and into hell from whence she came. So I tap her on the shoulder. She turns around. My face remains obscured by shadow. "I would like to buy your services, madam," I said politely. "And do you have a room?" she asked. "No, madam. Perhaps right here in this alley." "Well, very well. 2 shillings. She exposes her supple bosom, untying the front of her corset, and raises her skirt to allow access to her feminine parts below. I feel a surge of energy rush through me. Is it lust for her body, or the rage and hatred towards her for causing such unholy feelings in my mind that drives me? I can't tell. I assume that it's a mixture of both. I reach into my coat. She assumes that I'm retrieving some coin. She doesn't see my gloved hand grip the handle of my knife. Not a few seconds pass as I draw it from my coat and send it to its home betwixt her breasts, starting the flowing crimson fountain of life gushing from her. I vanquish yet another demon and send her to where she belongs. I finish my work. The knife rips her skin in two, slicing downward, leaving my signature mark. I go about removing her entrails, storing them in my bag. I'll use those in my rituals later tonight. It's for this reason, my dear friends and companions who have joined me on this journey, that you may know me as the Ripper. But you can call me Jack.